right, okay, 1 second, let me just hit the button. Hi, Annette, and everyone who's watching, and welcome to our session. And my name is Emmy Min, and I am a professor at the University of Southern California's MAT TESOL program. And I've worked in Korean context for a long time, I believe, a number of years. And before I joined USC's TESOL program as the faculty. And equitable assessment is one of my research interests, and it's something that I really think is important for educators, regardless of where you are at, to be able to learn how to design and administer. So I would like to introduce, first of all, my co-presenters, and we are going to give you some tips on how to improve your assessment to be more equitable, and also maybe do some practice on how to do that. So I wanted to turn it over to you, Iris, to introduce yourself briefly.
Thank you. Hi, this is Iris. Actually, I come from China. I'm into language education since I was an undergrad. I majored in Spanish and I taught Spanish to adult learners for almost a year. Then I started to do English tutoring and teaching 3 years ago. I worked for myself most of the time. And also I worked for 2 big crime schools in China for about half year. Then I'm here learning from expert teachers and researchers. I took 2 courses from Dr. Meng in the past year, and I love both of them. Amazing curriculum design, and she's always ready to help. So it's my pleasure to be here to co-present with Dr. Meng and learn from other experienced language educators. Hope we can all have fun here today. And that's my part. Kaylin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I really agree with Iris. She just mentioned everything that I was going to mention. Yeah, I'm also a USC grad student, and I've taken 1 course with Dr. Meng. I really like her way of delivering the class. Hopefully I could teach, Mandarin here in the US. Yeah, that's all about me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. So we'll get started. So first of all, we're going to do it this way. We'll spend about first 15 minutes describing what equitable assessment means and what it looks like according to the research that I conducted and the papers that I've been publishing in different venues. And we'll do some hands-on work on how to improve an assessment based on this framework. So and then we'll have some Q&A and debriefing session afterwards. So we'll start, and then feel free to jump in or chat. Use the chat to type in your questions or comments there, and we'll try to incorporate them as much as we could as we go along. So you can do that. So everybody's able to see my PowerPoint, I hope. And
yeah.
We just try to make it a little bit bigger. Okay. All right, so equitable assessment is really, something that we all know is very important, but it is very challenging to design and administer. The reason why it is really challenging and it is really hard to design and administer is because sometimes we really have to be reflective, very critically reflective on our own biases as a person who's creating an assessment, or someone who's administering an assessment, or someone who's evaluating the results after students have turned in their assessments to you. So it's really hard to really critically reflect on our own biases because we come with that. And we are talking about anywhere from, is the assessment itself biased? Or is the interpretation of the assessment result biased? And are you trying to capture the results that you intend to capture? And are you providing equitable opportunity for all students? to demonstrate their full potential on their assessments. Are we doing these? All of these factors are very, very important. So in order for us to improve our assessment to be more equitable, and something that I wanted to introduce to all of you are these 6 principles. And the first one is called validity. I think many of you who have experience in assessments would know what validity is. But then I will be adding some more, I guess, factors to consider in the construct of validity, reliability, authenticity, practicality, a term called the watchback, and finally, equity. So altogether, I call it equitable assessment framework. And my suggestion is for educators and teachers and everybody who, the stakeholders need to really use this framework in order to first of all, gauge whether or not your own assessment is equitable and how you can make your assessment more equitable. All right, so the first one, I'll go over all of these 6 principles in briefly, and then we'll have a chance to, work with these 6 principles. So first one is validity, and the traditional definition is that is the degree to which an assessment aligns with its intended objective. And something that we added is it is, we're also measuring whether the results are interpreted to be fair for the assessed groups. And this is really important. So just simple example is when we're trying to assess students' speaking skills, for example. And if we use paper and pencil test, is it really valid? We are using 2 different skills, okay? We're comparing 2 different skills, and that may not be equitable and valid in this case. So that's really a simple example of how an assessment can be invalid. But I have these checklists for you to check, and I have more extended list of checklists somewhere else when I have a longer papers. But these are just examples of what you can do to improve the validity of your assessment, or the assessment that you use from somewhere else that you have adapted from. So for example, you need to research the context and students' needs. Students come with different backgrounds and the goals, and their background knowledge is different, and they're, even though they may be coming from, all Korean contexts, their socioeconomic status might be different, and they might have had different experiences, home experiences, in different contexts. So you need to do a research on that and outline what intended consequences derived from the assessment, and you need to use it as a way to design your own assessment. One example, it was like when I was a novice teacher a long, long time ago, I think. And still, I made a really bad decision to not do a research on students' context and their background. And I gave them a final exam. And my question for them, it was speaking class. And my question for them, it was, where did you go? Where did you travel in the world? And which place did you like the best? And that was my question to them. And about half of them couldn't answer that question. And I thought it was their English ability, but it was actually because they did not have the experience of traveling abroad. So it was a final exam, which means that I did not know about my students' background knowledge or experiences up until that point. So it was shame on me, right? So really have to know that your students and their background knowledge and their experiences and what they want to know, what they want to learn about in your class, and do some research around that so that you can actually use and incorporate their needs and wants into your assessments. So some of the other things that you can consider incorporating into your assessment and administration of your assessment is reflect to see if the construct being used for the language assessment is evidence-based. So for example, if you have if you're using argumentative essay, okay, if you're asking your students to write an arguments, okay, and if you use a rubric with just 2 or 3 criteria that are not evidence-based, but that's from your own anecdotal experiences, I don't think it's as valid as you would like it to be. Okay, you can make it more valid by using more evidence-based construct or rubric that is research-based, for example, to measure their ability to write an argumentative essay. So you can refer to a source rather than coming up with your own anecdotal experiences on what makes it a good argumentative essay in order for you to improve the validity, in this case, construct validity of your assessment. And also check to see whether the content of the assessment aligns with the objective of the lesson or assessment. And it just seems like a no-brainer, but you really need to do a good job doing this, because a lot of times you are trying to assess one thing, but your assessment does not assess that very thing that you wanted to assess. So go through every single questions to see if your assessment is doing that, and that could improve the validity of your assessment. And another thing that I think is important for educators to consider is to use a variety of different question types or items in an assessment. If you just use one question type, okay, multiple choice questions, for example, all the way. And, some students who are not really familiar with that type or who don't do well, okay, doing multiple choice questions, or that could really lower the overall validity of your assessment. So try to diversify the assessment question types, and that would really improve the overall validity of the assessment. Now I wanted to turn it over to my co-presenters to see if they can provide us with an example of validity.
Yeah, thank you. So this is an example from USA American Language Institute. So in the past semester, I was a classroom observer here, and the course I was observing is called Academic and Professional Spoken English. It is designed for teaching assistants to improve their teaching and presentation language skills. Presentation is adopted as the main activity in the classroom. Students give presentations every week. So throughout this semester, the topics the teacher addressed about presentation include assertion, evidence, slide design, delivery, body language and transitions, how to answer question, and also pronunciation. So if you take a look at this evaluation form on the slide, we will find that the criteria here of the criteria of assessment are highly consistent with what the teacher has talked about in the classroom. In this sense, we can say the assessment is valid in terms of consistency between content taught in the classroom and the assessment objectives. And also, the assessment is also valid in terms of the construct about how we define a good academic presentation. It's not just about fluency, pronunciation, or grammar. It should be holistic, right? Delivery, slide design, body language, all of these factors are also important. So in a nutshell, this assessment of this LI course aligns with the validity principle when it comes to content assessment consistency and the construct of assessment for presentation. And thank you. That's my sharing.
Thank you, Iris. Okay. So Caitlin, if you have anything else you can jump into.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So what Iris just shared is really important, because we need to, as an educator, remember that we should not be assessing something that we did not teach. Okay. But a lot of times, we do that. Okay, sometimes knowingly and not knowingly. I mean, so I think it's important to check that the things that we taught are what we're assessing. So that's something that I talked about earlier, about aligning of lesson objectives with the assessment. And also including all of the features that are pertinent to assessing the skill, a given skill. In this case, is a presentation skill. So I think this, you can say this is overall, this can, this whoever designing this designed this assessment, and also whoever is administering this assessment, was trying to improve the overall validity. Okay. All right. The second construct or second principle, I call it, is reliability. Okay, reliability is the degree to which an assessment is reliable and consistent, meaning that you have to have consistent way to measure the student performances and skills. So sometimes there are typos, or your Scantron machine does not work, or there are more than one raters who have different standards of grading, like an essay question or something like that. And even if it's just one grader, I mean, if you are using different standards when you're grading different students, I mean, that causes an equity issue too, and also reliability issue. So when you are trying to improve your reliability, you really need to make sure that you have training sessions for all raters who are rating your the assessment, so that you all are working off of the same criteria as much as possible, and focus on a criteria related to objective of the assessment. When grading assessment, do not rely on subjective criteria. Stick to the checklist or rubric or grading criteria that you have shared with your students, or the same one all the way, so that you are giving unfair advantage or disadvantage to certain groups of students. Okay, and avoid fatigue when grading criteria. If you're tired, you might not be using the same consistent standard that you are using, to assess your students. And develop a rubric with measurable and consistent criteria. Make sure it is clear and measurable, not vague. Okay, that's really important. The condition of the test centers, no noise, and should be comfortable for students. Review the test carefully so the assessment is free of errors or typos. And check to see whether the assessment is design, format, and instrument, and the way it is administered are optimal and consistent for all students. So I think it's really important to ensure that the test administration environment, as well as you as the rater and others who are raters, are using consistent criteria. Okay. All right, so I'm going to then talk about the example of reliability, in which this is from you, Caitlin, right? Or yeah, okay, go ahead.
So I will actually give a very life-related example about it. For example, if you use the kitchen scale to weigh, say, 5 pounds of potatoes in the morning, so then like after an hour later, you reweigh it. So the amount you weigh it should be 5 pounds again, right? But if you like get a number like less than the 5 pounds or more than 5 pounds, either way, your scale might be wrong, or your potatoes might peeled or processed something. So the same thing, likewise in the classroom, if we're giving exams or tests or national standard tests to students, if you test the students in the morning or in the afternoon, the results should come they should come out the same. So that would help you kind of reflect on the reliability. Yeah.
Thank you, Caitlin. So due to the interest of time, I'm going to skip over to washback and equity. So washback, I think this is a new term to maybe some of you. And this is the definition of washback is the positive or negative impact of assessment on teaching or learning. So any type of impact or influence that an assessment has on teaching and learning. So for example, when you are teaching to the test, okay, sometimes we as teachers, we want to prepare our students to be successful, in an assessment. So we, try to tailor our teaching to to the test. And sometimes it's good because we're preparing our students to do so. But if you do it too much and it's just teach to the test and you're not focused on teaching and learning, but more so on their ability to do well in the assessment. So it's an overall washback effect, an example. And so a couple of things that you can be mindful of when you are trying to have more positive washback function is that you can conduct a review session before the assessment to prepare students for the assessment, so students know what to expect and how to prepare for your assessment, and provide a variety of feedback, such as written, qualitative and quantitative feedbacks, not just scores, but you can provide more qualitative feedback on what they need to do. And even when they're doing well, why are they doing well, so that you can help them continue to do what they're already doing well. Use a rubric or grading criteria that have a built-in feedback section. So if you're just simply using a rubric to grade their assessments, and you can have like a comment section next to that, so that you can talk about your feedback there as well. Or if you have like a score separated by each different categories in the rubric, then that speaks to itself that if you got a 5 out of 5 on clarity of the writing, then the student knows that they have done a good job in there. Provide an opportunity to discuss the assessment with students after it is administered, and consider possible consequences of the assessment and try to avoid negative consequences as a result of the assessment. So when you're designing and administering the assessment, think about some of the possible consequences that it might have on, it could be just a group of students, or just one student or a couple of students or all of the students, and you can try to avoid the negative consequences that could happen as a result of your assessment. And assess students' social, cultural content, linguistic and academic knowledge and skills prior to designing and administering a language assessment. So just like what we said earlier about validity, you might want to do a research on a student's background and experiences and their goals and all of that to see if you can exert a positive washback function through your assessment. So if you use an assessment and if you want your students to be able to learn something, then you can use an assessment to make sure that you have a positive washback function. So your students can learn that content, and that really helps them be successful outside your class. And you're using the washback as a way to help your students, and it's called the intended washback function. Last but not least, equity. We want to make sure that through our assessment that we are promoting equity and have an equitable assessment. So first of all, try to see if you can check your assessments to avoid potential misrepresentation. Sometimes it happens in your examples that you use, omissions, insensitive language, or content, sometimes depending on where they're from or what they bring to your class, so they might find some languages or content offensive, and you might want to check that. Conduct research and invest. Yes.
Do you mind if I jump in?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I have a classic counterexample of this. So in 2017, Chinese college entrance examination, as we all know that it's a very high stake standardized exam, right? It was the Chinese writing test, language examination anyway. Students were asked to introduce China, and 12 keywords were given to students, and students should choose 2 to 3 of them to talk about these topics. And 3 of these keywords, high-speed railway, bike sharing, and mobile payment. For students from cities, they are super common topics. They may take high-speed train for vacation, ride-sharing bikes to school, or use phones to pay every day. But students from less developed areas may never have seen these things in their real life. And this soon aroused nationwide debate about equity problems. You don't even have to be an expert to tell that it was totally inappropriate. Yeah.
Thank you, Iris. So, and now it's a really high stake test, right? It's a college entrance exam. And I think that we have the same issues in Korea too, like when we have like a high stake test like that, and we want to make sure it is equitable for everybody. But, no test assessment is perfect. So we sometimes find errors and or mistakes or biases like that. So if I may continue, so I think the one thing that is really important is the second point too, is that conduct research and investigate the performance of students of different ethnicity and races, gender, religion, and socioeconomic backgrounds, and it determine whether there's a discrepancy in the learner outcome. So if you can kind of do a research, mini research about your student demographics, and maybe think about the discrepancy in the learner outcomes, and ensure that the difference is due to the skill, knowledge, and ability that the assessment is targeting, not due to any potential learning discrepancies that exist. In other words, if your students already have access to means to do well in your assessments, and it's their socioeconomic status that allows them to be able to be prepared for your assessment. And there might be other groups of students who don't have access to these privileges. And you might want to try to level the playing field by providing more accommodations and more scaffoldings and access to those students who need that support, so that when they're taking your assessments, and it's their skills and performances and not their privileges that is that is making an impact on the results of their assessments. And there are a couple other ways in which you can make your assessments more equitable. So a couple of things here I want to highlight. Provide accommodations to students who need extra help before, during, and after the assessment. And teaching and assessment practice should be integrated using formative and dynamic assessment. So it should not be, if you can, don't make it too discrete of an assessment, but try to integrate assessments so that it is you're assessing the overall performance rather than just so that it is formative and summative and dynamic assessment, and different types of assessments. Use a variety of different types of assessment rather than just using multiple choice all the way, for example, right? And reporting of assessment results should usually be in the form of a qualitative profile and quantitative. So diversify the profile of an assessment report rather than just using numeric or quantitative profile all the way. Okay. There are a couple other things, and sufficient assessment samples. You cannot just rely on one exam to gauge their skills or knowledge or performance, right? You need to base on various different assessment results of a given student to be able to tell, the student needs something, or is proficient in doing something, right? So in order for you to make that decision, you need to base that off of a variety of different evidence from the student's assessments. Multiple language varieties, and registers should be used on assessments as much as possible. And students should be given the opportunity to provide their responses using the language of variety, or register of their choosing. As much as possible. I mean, if there is an opportunity, if there's more than one language being spoken, especially in your class. Critical reflection and iterative cycle, and students should be encouraged to think about macro impacts of assessment and social actions to promote justice. So they really have to be given this opportunity to think about what larger impacts that these assessments could have on themselves in an individual level, and also in a societal level. So students should be active participants in the process of developing assessment procedures. If you can, I know sometimes you're not really allowed to engage students in developing assessments, but if you're able to, I think that it's a good idea to involve students in developing the assessment. And both the process and product of assessment tests should be evaluated. So not just the results, but also the process as much as possible. And use iterative process to revise assessments, design, procedure, context. So always go back to your drawing board to see if you need to change anything. for next assessments if you, evaluate your results and if you see something that needs to be revised or changed. So this was validity, reliability, equity, and watchback in a nutshell. So I wanted to spend some time now to see if we could use an assessment example to see if these are valid, reliable, and equitable, and also has a positive watchback function. If not, then what are some other ways in which we can use to improve this assessment's overall equity measure? That would be something that we wanted to do.
Hi, Dr. Ming.
Yes.
I think we got a question from the chat box.
Yes, we do. And I'm reading it right now. It's from Roxy, right? I have a question about insensitive content with the example that you have given about CSAT. Things that are common for a certain group of people could not be common for other groups of people. As a language assessor or a test developer, where should we put the focus for the target group of people? So I think my answer to that question is, if I were the developer and I have a full control over that, I would try to choose a content that is universal as much as possible. Like I said, there's no perfect exam out there, especially if you have a high stake exam and if you want to try to satisfy everybody. I don't think it's possible. However, what you can do is you can try to improve the overall equity of the assessment as much as possible. And by using examples or reading passages or something that you use in your assessment, all of the things you need to make sure that you critique everything that you use in your assessment to make sure that those are universal examples as much as possible. If not, if you have doubts about these, then you need to replace it with something else. And what you can also do is show the exams to people coming from different culture to see if they have similar interpretations as you do. And I think that really, cross-checking is one way in which you can achieve, you can make sure that this happens. If not, then try to use some examples that are familiar with your student population as much as possible. So in this session, we're mainly focused on classroom level assessments because I know that high stake test and test developer, they're constantly looking for ways to make their assessments equitable by doing research. And doing some trial versions of their assessments and all of that. But in the class, we know our students and we know the demographics. And I think that doing some, distributing some surveys for our students and checking with the other teachers and evaluating the results after they have taken the assessment to see if the results are, representative of their skills or performances. I think that's really important for us to check. I hope this answers your question. So right now in the chat, I wanted to upload an example assessment that we're going to work off of and see if we can use it to see if we can make it better. Okay, using some of the principles that we have talked about. So please download the assessment in the chat. So I know that everyone knows, many of you know the textbook Interchange, and it's a really popular textbook in Korea. So this is an assessment that is designed from that textbook, Interchange. So I wanted to review these. Okay, there are 3 of us here. So could we use breakout rooms right now?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I know we don't have very many attendees, but can we put each one of us with each of the attendees in the breakout so that we can work with them one-on-one?
Okay, so 2 breakout rooms.
I think there's 4 people. There are 4 people here.
4 people, yes.
Yeah, the one breakout could have 2 people in it.
Okay.
Iris and Caitlin, you can also show the assessment on or share the assessment in a breakout.
Sure.
Okay.
Your mic, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm here. So let me. I'm in break. I was assigned to breakout one, but Iris is in that room, so I left.
Okay, I put Caitlin in room 2.
Okay, and who's in room 3?
There's only 2 rooms.
Oh, okay, that's fine. And is my computer someone who's attending?
My
the session
computer is supposed to be in room 1, but they haven't joined for some
Okay.
reason.
I think that's fine then. I'll join breakout 1, or can I join breakout 2? Because I want to
Yes,
help
of course.
Caitlin. Mhm.
No problem.
Type in my. I'm going to type in my email in case you have any. Oh, sorry, that's not the right email. Sorry. In case you have any questions about any of the issues that we've talked about, and I'm happy to share my my article, the book chapter that recently got published on this very topic, and so that you have a more in-depth understanding of what we're talking about, and ask you, can give you some an opportunity for you to ask us any questions about this. So. Yeah, and I hope you had a great time. And we've, all we really wanted you to do is to raise some questions while you are reviewing, a set of assessment, and I'll find a way to use more equitable ways to improve your assessment practices. Sometimes someone else creates an assessment and you just need to administer that, but providing more support and scaffolding, and also finding out the needs of your students so that they are more successful, okay, through your assessment. I think that's really important, bottom line, to improve overall equity assessment. Okay, I will share a link, my publication. Let me, if you give me a minute. Okay, I'm going to post my actual chapter on this link, if that's okay with you, and that's going to wrap up our session.
You are also welcome to share this under your presentation on Edzilla. You can
Yes,
customize and add it there as well for anybody.
yes, I'll do that. I'll do that as soon as we're done.
All right.
And I know since Roxy is asking that question, let me do that. Give me just 20 seconds and we'll be out of your way, because I know there's other presenters here. Okay. Here you go. Just share your, here's the link to my book chapter on equity-minded classroom-based assessment practices. Okay, so thank you everybody for participating, and yeah, please let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the workshop. And we do have the Discord server. So if you want to continue this discussion, you can head over there and do that under the sessions discussion tab.
Excellent, we'll do that. Thank
All
you,
right.
Garth.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Bye-bye.